So I'm oftentimes asked if I had no money and I wanted to get into real estate, what would I do? So if I were to lose everything that I had tomorrow, all 19 doors, and I lost all my money as well, this is the one thing that I would go do that I know after enough time would get me deals. This is how I got my first wholesale deal when I had left my original company that I was working for, and we made $30,000 on that very first assignment fee. So, for those of you that are wanting to get into wholesaling or even getting into purchasing off market property that is distressed to be able to fix and flip or burr, this is really going to be the same ways. But wholesale is a great way to get started. So, first off, what I would do is I would pay for Deal Machine. I believe it is 120 a month now, 120, something along those lines. And what I would do is what's called driving for dollars. This is going to be where you go into an area and you are driving around looking for properties that are rough. You're looking for properties that have damaged roofs. You're looking for properties that look like they're vacant. You're looking for properties that have, wood rot, chipped paint, overgrown lawns, other things of that nature. And of course, you could go after highly motivated leads. But the thing about it is that the more lists per se that these people end up on, which is like you don't pay your taxes, you're probably going to end up on some distress list. You don't pay your mortgage payment, you're going to end up on some distress list. You have code violations, you're going to end up on a distress list. If you just hunt those leads down, that's what a lot of people are hunting down. So the goal between driving for dollars is to find people that, yes, they do have a level of distress, but ideally maybe are only on one list or not very many lists. So that way you don't have a ton of competition when you're going after these deals. Because what you'll find is that there's a lot of people, at least in good markets, that are going after these deals. My market's Kansas City. So first off, you're going to want to find an area where there's multiple exits. By that, I mean that it is an area that works good for flips and it's an area that works good for rentals. So people have multiple different ways. You're going to increase your buyer pool with that and your chance of actually dispoing the deal. Also, typically in these kind of like lower end areas, there's more investors that can afford those deals. So of course, again, bigger buyer pool. Me personally, I'm going to go for areas that are going to be easier to dispo. So the nicer the area, the harder it's going to be to get a deal, but the easier it's going to be to find a buyer and dispo that deal out because everyone wants them in good areas. You start going to the rough areas, not a lot of people want to buy those deals. Of course, you can get a deal locked up very easily, but you may struggle finding that buyer. So I would go for an area that is a decent school system, in a decent school system, and you're able to get in at like a beginner entry point for whatever your market is. So for us here in Kansas City, I'd be looking for areas where houses are selling between 175,000 to 250,000. That's going to be a really good kind of price point. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a piece of paper, and the more professional this looks, the less people you're going to have call you. And at the end of the day, it's all about having conversations with people. If you feel really bold, I say knock on the door. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to leave a sticky note. And I think the most scalable way to do this is to go ahead and draw out on a piece of paper, and just say these words. I have a question about your house. Please give me a call at, and it's going to be your number. You are going to write that out a couple of times on a piece of paper, photocopy that. So that way it still looks like it's your handwriting. And then you're just going to tape that on people's doors. You are going to use Deal Machine to then track everyone that you've put a sticky note on their door. So that way, when you are getting home, you've created your list. So, you would go to your map, wherever you're searching. This would be a good pocket here in Independence. And I would be, finding the addresses at which I had gone out to that property, and I would be adding it to a list that I've created. So we're going to add the lead. We're going to put it on a list, and we're going to put it on a driving for dollars list. So the cool thing about Deal Machine is that they're going to do all of the skip tracing for you. You're going to be able to pull up their contact information and call them. A lot of times they'll have an email address as well, which you, of course, can cold email people. You do have to be very careful. I recommend adding these people to a list and calling them. However, if they are on the DNC list, you must do that at your own risk because there can be a fine associated with calling these people. And don't cold text. It is just flat out illegal by the FTC. 100% do it at your own risk if you would like to. That's all out illegal. If they're not on the do not call list, you can call them all you want. This will actually run the do not call list for you. So you can even load these people up into a dialer, go ahead, dial through the system and just say, hey, I left you a sticky note on your door. Did you receive it? Have you ever thought about selling? Because sometimes these are vacant properties. So you want to make sure that you are, calling the potential owner of that property who may not ever see your sticky note. Additionally, you are going to want to, on top of the sticky note, you're going to want to send them mail. Now, this is where it starts getting a little bit more expensive. You can mail through this system, through Deal Machine. It's, I think 60, 70 cents a piece of mail. Mail is very, very powerful. A lot of people are, kind of scared away from doing it. But if you think that a lead is truly going to be a good lead, it can be really worthwhile if you're very targeted with it on houses that you think you could get. You can nail down your mailing list if you were to maybe wait a second, see if you get a response on your mailer, try to call them, don't get a response, maybe then you mail. For people that have already responded to you, maybe you don't mail them. You don't need to mail them. So if you do kind of wait and create this process out, you can narrow down your mailing list that way. But when you do get a hold of someone, you're going to want to track this somewhere. So I think there is a way, once the leads are in your system, for you to create notes. But honestly, I would still recommend going ahead and, if not, having a CRM on file. And this could even be a, spreadsheet if absolutely necessary. Podio is free. There's a real estate package with Podio. You can get that for free. It's a CRM. You could track the phone numbers that you're pulling for these people. You can track the email address, the time you contacted them, when things were left. And that way, when they say, hey, I'm not interested in selling, but circle back in a couple of months, you can set a task, a reminder for you to turn around and do that follow-up. Because yes, you can do deals without being organized, without tracking all of these things. But I promise you, if you are consistently doing this for months and you are having good follow-up and you're writing all these notes down and you're getting back on the phone with them, you're picking up where the conversation last left off, you will quite literally do 10 more deals than if you were just always scavenging. And if you miss it the first time, you never circle back on it and you're just always out there looking for a deal. There is another layer to this. You will need to find a buyer, especially if you're going to wholesale the deal. Now, if you're a buyer, then of course that changes everything. You find the deal, go ahead and take it down. That's going to take money. Even with hard money, you're looking at 10% of the purchase price plus funds available to start the rehab. So a lot of times it's a really good way to get started is to get into that wholesale and find a buyer that's willing to mentor you. And even if that involves you getting a little bit less on your very first assignment deal, if you have someone that's willing to walk you along the entire way, especially if they're willing to go help you lock the deal up in the living room and go get the deal done, because I mean, face it, it's a pretty intimidating thing when you're not quite sure what those conversations look like. I'll have more videos on how I'm negotiating with sellers and what that conversation entails. But it can be intimidating at first, and it does take a while to find these leads. And so a lot of times when you do get a good one, you want to make sure that it doesn't get wasted. So find someone out there, provide value to them. And in turn, a lot of times they can go out and kind of help you back and help you or essentially get started, because, a lot of people that are active in the business, they don't have a lot of time to track these deals down. And if they have someone that is, hungry, that's going out there and doing the work and bringing them business, a lot of times they'll take that extra time to pour into you a little bit. So this is essentially how I got started when I had left my business, and how I managed to very quickly get up to a point to which I've been able to buy 19 rental doors in a little bit over 2 years. So if anyone ever has any questions on how this works, or a deeper part of the process, or a recommendation for a next video, just comment below what you'd like to see, what questions you have, and I'd be happy to answer them. So everyone have a good rest of your week.